Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar class on revitalizing energy management and reducing fatigue strategies. Okay, so let's get started. So who am I? So my name is Anna Laura Brown. I am a holistic health coach who got my training with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition back in 2015 is when I completed that. I have also been educating the world about essential oils since 2011, and I'm really passionate about those. I also am an autoimmune thriver, as I like to say, as I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2018. And then about a year and a half ago, launched the Autoimmune Rehab podcast, where I interview people about their journeys to hope and healing through autoimmunity and autoimmune challenges. So that is a little bit about me. And as you can tell, the topic of this webinar class tonight is all about how to have more energy and how to have less fatigue and strategies to help you feel like you can continue through the day without having to constantly take naps all the time. And so we are going to be talking about some strategies about how to make that happen. And in case you had probably figured, I have been there, done that before, and every once in a while I still struggle a little bit to maintain my own energy levels as well. So we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that I have used and some of the strategies that I continue to use to help myself to have more energy and feel like I have more vitality and just be able to thrive despite some of my autoimmune challenges. So some of those things I'm going to be sharing with you how to do those as well. So why are we talking about this class? Well, I just hinted on that a little bit with my own personal story, but as anybody who has encountered any challenges around energy or vitality knows that it can be a struggle sometimes to make it through an entire day, even an entire week, sometimes an entire month without feeling like you just need to take a nap all the time, you just are tired all the time, you feel run down, you feel like you just can't handle your life. And so we are going to talk about some strategies to help you because let's face it, this is something that a lot of people with autoimmune conditions and even people who maybe don't struggle with autoimmune conditions struggle with. So I'm talking about it because I feel like this is a really common topic that needs to be addressed. And I feel like I have quite a bit of things that I can say that can help people out in this area. Okay, so let's keep going. So what are we going to talk about? So we're going to talk about, to start with, we'll talk a little bit about some of the reasons why we get tired. Why are we tired? Why do we feel like we're constantly run down? Why are we constantly struggling with fatigue? Then we'll talk about some of the common solutions that are out there to help you, and then some of the strategies that you can do when you feel like you've just tried it all. So we will cover some of those things. So here's a quote I found by Benjamin Franklin that I thought was really good. Energy and persistence conquer all things. So the reality is that sometimes, especially when you are struggling with lack of energy and vitality, one of the best solutions to that is to just keep going, have that persistence, realize that it's a process to learn and adapt to what works for you and your health and your body, and that you probably aren't going to just go from being fatigued and struggling all the time to having everything be great all of the time. And like I mentioned in my About Me a little bit, even though I was at one point pretty drastically affected in this area, I still occasionally struggle despite all the different changes I've made. Things don't always go great for me either, but I've definitely learned some strategies that have helped me to make things go better. Okay, so is a summary of some of the key points of this, but then we're going to talk about even more as well on revitalizing energy management. So managing energy can be tough, but it's key to reducing your fatigue. So some of the things it says there to do are to take breaks, stay hydrated, and prioritize sleep at night. So these are, I feel like, three of the big keys, but there obviously are some additional keys as well. So taking breaks can be a big one. I feel like, especially here in North America, we have a tendency to just work, 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 work. And a lot of companies struggle with even encouraging their employees to even take their paid time off. It's like we just don't want to take the time off. We feel like if we take the time off, we're going to get behind. Some of our work's not going to get done. And so as a result, a lot of us will work when we are sick, even. We will not take the kind of breaks, the kind of vacations that we should. We will sit at work all day long and 8 hours later realize that maybe we stood up once for 5 minutes. And that's just really not good or healthy. So you really want to make sure that you are taking breaks, and along with that, that you are practicing good self-care habits and recognizing when maybe you just need a day off and it's okay, and you just have to give yourself permission to take one when you feel like you really need it. And staying hydrated is also another one. And I feel like this is, I don't know if it's totally a secret, but I feel like to some degree it's a little bit of a secret because I have noticed that if I start falling asleep during the middle of the day, start feeling tired, start feeling like, oh boy, here we go, that if you just drink some water, a lot of times that can really help because what a lot of people don't realize is that being dehydrated can actually cause fatigue. So the next time that you really start having some challenges around your energy level, I invite you to go drink a full 8 to 16 ounce glass or bottle of water and see what that does to your energy levels. And maybe even start keeping a journal to keep track of different things that you try for your energy level and take note of, did that help for you to drink water? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. And then prioritizing sleep at night. So prioritizing sleep is a big one. A lot of us don't get adequate sleep, and this should be the statement of the obvious, really. But if you're constantly struggling a lot with energy and fatigue, one of the reasons why could be that you're not getting adequate sleep at night. And you maybe need to address the root cause, if you will, which could potentially be a lack of sleep or not getting enough, as they call REM sleep, that kind of thing. And, that's really a whole topic, another topic. But the point is that, if it's a constant battle, one of the things you may want to look at is to start tracking your sleep if you're not doing that already. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, this is also, again, another thing here. So a couple things you can do to revitalize your energy is to realize that chronic fatigue is actually a common issue, and a lot more people have issues with chronic fatigue than they may even want to admit or that people may even realize. And as it says on there, it can negatively impact your lives a lot. So let's talk about some additional changes above and beyond what I talked about in the previous slide that can help with your energy level. So here we have some things listed like your lifestyle changes, your dietary changes, exercise, strategies to incorporate into your daily routine. So let's address first lifestyle changes. So lifestyle changes, can go hand in hand with the dietary changes as well. So maybe we'll discuss those together a little bit. But a couple things to keep about in mind is, how is your stress level? Because believe it or not, if you're constantly in fight or flight and you're feeling stressed a lot, those can impact your fatigue levels. Also, anything that's going on in your life that may be causing you to be emotionally drained, that may be causing grief, like maybe you had a pet or close friend or family member that died, maybe you got laid off and lost your job, maybe you've got just different things that you are stressed or depressed about. A lot of those things can really be causing fatigue, believe it or not. And then with the dietary changes, a lot of us don't realize, and I think it's starting to become more and more aware, the role that the food that you eat and consume can play in your body's energy level and your fatigue. Now, obviously, there are some obvious ones here that people have been realizing for a long time, like the role that, eating sugar can basically make you get a high and then make you crash, and the same thing can happen with caffeine. But it goes a lot more beyond that. A lot of us, for various reasons, can develop intolerances or sensitivities to some kinds of foods. We can have digestive issues, and it can make it so that our stomach and digestive system has a harder time processing the food that we eat, and that in turn can make us tired. And so if you are really struggling a lot with fatigue and trying to gain control of it, I challenge you to take a food journal. And you can buy food journals online. There are apps you can get, different things like that, but you could also keep it simple with just a separate notebook and a pen and put the date, put what you ate, and then rate your energy levels throughout the day. And specifically notice if there are certain foods that are making you tired. Like, I don't have this problem as much anymore because I gave it up for quite some time, but I only eat cheese, maybe once a month or so. But I used to not eat cheese at all, really, and had to avoid it for quite some time because I started noticing that cheese and dairy products were actually making me tired. So that's just an example of something that can make you tired. A lot of us can get tired through also the overconsumption of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates can give us a little bit of an energy boost or an energy kick, but then if you have too much, can make you tired. Also gluten, processed foods that, contain high amounts of grains and not a whole lot of nutritional value can also make us tired, a lot of us. And so just really want to keep track of what potentially could be making you tired when it comes to what you're eating. And that can apply to drinking as well. And then exercise. So, despite what you might think, if you are feeling tired, dragging around, thinking, oh my gosh, I just can't do any exercise today. Well, the reality is, and I have noticed this through personal experience, just even, well, yesterday morning, actually, even Monday morning, getting out of bed, I have a goal to go to the gym and go swimming at least 3 times a week. And I typically do it in the morning. Occasionally, I might go at night, but most of the time, I go in the morning. And it's pretty early. I leave my house around 6 and come home around 7:15 and start working at 8 a.m. I work full time from home, so I'm fully remote, so I don't have an office that I go to. But, I tell you that the mornings that I get out off my butt and out the door and I go to the gym and I go swimming, or, if I don't go swimming and I stay at home and do some different kinds of exercises and things like that, I definitely have more energy level throughout the day if I take the time to exercise, even if I wake up feeling like I'm in pain, feeling like I'm tired, feeling like I just can't do it. There is something about exercising, especially exercising during that first hour of the day when you wake up, that can be really energizing and give you quite a bit of energy. And so if that's not something that you've tried, I challenge you to try it. And if you just feel like you can't make it to the gym, make yourself put on your tennis shoes and, even in your pajamas still or sweats or whatever. And if you live in a cold environment, put on a coat if you need to and just go walking around the neighborhood for 10 minutes outside. But the point is that I really promise that exercising on a regular basis can really help with your energy level. Even if you think, oh, there's no way, I just can't do it. Well, you can, and it will help, I promise. So that's just something else to keep in mind. Okay, so this list right here contains a lot of the top reasons about why people are tired a lot. So some of these we've already addressed. So the first one is obviously a lack of sleep. That's the most obvious. And, the one that I would say if you haven't addressed that, that is definitely where you want to start. And then the wrong food. So we were starting to address that as well. Eating foods that are making you tired. Adrenal fatigue. Now, adrenal fatigue is something that I'm going to actually be addressing this in more detail on my podcast called Autoimmune Rehab. So if you haven't checked out my podcast, it's on Spotify and Apple. If you go and search Autoimmune Rehab, you will find it. In a couple weeks, I will have an episode dropping where I'm going to address this a little bit more. But basically, your adrenal glands and your thyroid, so like it says thyroid issues there, go hand in hand together. And if you have thyroid issues, you probably have some sort of adrenal fatigue as well. And your adrenal glands can really control a lot of your energy levels. And Adrenal fatigue is a little bit tricky because a lot of medical doctors will tell you it's not a real condition, yet a lot of acupuncturists, Eastern medicine, naturopath, chiropractors, they will tell you that it actually is a real condition. And I will tell you from my own personal experience of having Hashimoto's and thyroid issues, therefore, and struggling a little bit with fatigue in the past and adrenal fatigue, that they definitely are interconnected. And if you have thyroid issues, you're probably going to have some adrenal issues. And by fixing your adrenal issues, a lot of times you can fix your thyroid issues. So it's kind of a little bit, um, yeah, they're just interconnected and interrelated. And one of the big things with adrenal fatigue is making sure that you really support your body with what it needs to heal. And that is not a lot of sugar. It's not a lot of caffeine. It's not a lot of processed foods. It's, supporting your body with good whole foods where you pretty much cook all your food at home and you try to avoid anything that you have any kind of an allergy or sensitivity to. And then thyroid issues are a big one as well. And there are a lot more people, especially women, who have who have thyroid issues than what traditional medical is going to be willing to recognize. And I know from my own personal experience, as well as the experience of a lot of other people that I've talked to, and even people that I've interviewed for my podcast, because a lot of my podcast is people coming on and sharing their stories about their journeys to healing from either a thyroid issue or some kind of an autoimmune condition, is that a lot of times if you go to the doctor, they run a bunch of tests, they say, oh, nothing's wrong, fine, we're all good here, but yet you still feel like crap. A lot of times adrenal fatigue and thyroid or some kind of autoimmune are at the root cause of that. And part of the reason that a lot of times thyroid issues don't get diagnosed or they get misdiagnosed is because the traditional lab tests that a lot of times are run do not check for antibodies. And that is what has to be checked to determine the autoimmune part. And a lot of times doctors either won't check because they feel like knowing those numbers isn't going to change anything. And to some degree, they're correct because thyroid medication doesn't fix antibody numbers. But there are things that you can do in the holistic world to help with that. And yes, it can be very hard to get those numbers down, but if you don't at least know what they are, you can for sure do nothing about it. And you don't know if you have an autoimmune issue or just a hypo or hyperthyroid issue. So it really is important to get those numbers. And then sometimes it can be a struggle to get insurance companies to pay for it, the testing for it. Personally, I had to pay out of pocket at a naturopath after 5 years of issues to finally get a diagnosis, which is ridiculous if you ask me, but that is just how it went for me. I couldn't get the regular doctors initially to diagnose me. Now it's no longer really an issue. I do still go to more of a holistic minded doctor, but they automatically test for them every time because I've had my diagnosis. So initially, sometimes you might have to pay, and then in the future, you may not have to deal with it as much. But yeah, I definitely would say that the adrenal fatigue and the thyroid issues are going to be something that if you're really struggling a lot, you probably really want to put the gas on and applying pressure to your doctors to get the right tests. And if you can't get them at the doctor you're currently at, you may need to go to a different one. And that's just the reality. Okay, and then sugar and caffeine. I think a lot of us are aware of the cycle a little bit of these, but you really, really got to be careful with sugar and caffeine when you have thyroid and or adrenal fatigue issues, or you are tired a lot. It's especially important that you not consume these at least 3 or 4 hours before bed. And personally, I think, and from some of the study and research and things that I've done, say that consuming these in drink form is even worse than eating them in food. So in other words, things like drinking soda, drinking coffee, drinking caffeinated beverages and sugar beverages are going to be worse than, say, a supplement that contains green tea that actually can be pretty helpful, or some kind of like an energy bar that may have a little bit of it, is to be less of a problem than consuming a drink. And part of that is also because many of the drinks that exist on the market with those things can cause heart issues. They can cause rack up your sleep. They can cause issues with your digestive health, all kinds of things. So just a lot of different things to be thinking about there. Okay, so a couple of things, like we already mentioned, but summarize this a little bit. To revitalize energy management and combat fatigue, you want to stay physically active. And personally, I have an alert set on my phone that reminds me to stand up every hour. And even though the standing up may only be 2 or 3 minutes, it still really can be really helpful. And then also making sure that you get enough sleep. And trying to prioritize that, make sure that happens. And then, like it says on there as well, eating for energy. So, introducing healthy, energy boosting foods into the diet. I find that some of the foods that give me the most energy are things like fruits and vegetables, of course, and also actually even some kinds of like fish, chicken, turkey, meat, those kind of things can actually give me quite a bit of energy as well. So, just something to keep in mind. Okay. So these are just a few additional strategies that you can try. So workplace fatigue can be combated by taking steps. So trying to make sure that you are getting your breaks, that you are doing what you can to stay awake as much as possible, hydrating. So planning 15-minute breaks into your daily schedule and drinking plenty of water throughout the day. I already emphasized that, but that's really, really important. So thank you for coming. And now what I'm going to do now, hopefully you found some of this information helpful, is I'm going to stop the recording. If you have any questions, I will open it up for you to ask, excuse me there, ask questions.